All right, we are live back here with Varu, who is going to guide us through another lesson for Vibe Marketing 101. And this time we're going to talk a little bit about Reddit. Is that right, Varu?
Yes, that's right.
Cool. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing what you have for us today.
Yep,
And yeah, give us kind of an intro in terms of what we're going to be talking about and what you think people will get out of this lesson.
absolutely. So I think Reddit has always been, uh, you always say that it's a gold mine where you can get a lot of ideas, a lot of business ideas for that matter, or even content ideas. And many the AI overview and things that we see is like extremely reliant on Reddit and stuff like that because of the UGC conversations, right? So um, when we do research, I think Reddit plays a very vital role for content research per se. So this is a beginner and semi-beginner friendly sort of a thing because we'll have code as well part of this workflow. So what we will be exploring in this workflow is that when we get into Reddit, this time you're not taking comments into consideration, but just the post, the overall post and stuff like that. Because if we take comment and things like that, the entire workflow can get a little bit messy. So I'm just going to take the post around a specific, our universal specific theme is marketing automation, right? So we're going to take something around marketing automation and look into the posts and identify what has been talked across these posts. What's the summary? What are they addressing? What's the pain point that's being addressed over there? And what content theme we could actually get from there, derive from these posts. And then based on those content themes, what sort of hooks and angles can we look into so that the next step is like go into the content ideas based on the hooks and angles and then build content on top of it, and then that content can be across multiple channels. But right now we are just going to look into the research, so it's not one dimensional.
Cool. Yeah, I think Reddit is such an interesting platform. Greg talks a lot about Reddit as well to find startup ideas and things like that. Yeah, if you look broadly at Reddit and its kind of place right now in the marketing ecosystem, I think there's a couple like patterns or nuggets that I take away from it. And like you mentioned, Google search results prioritize Reddit. If you take Reddit and you go and plug that into SEMrush or Ahrefs or something like that, like their growth has been astronomical as search engines prioritize user generated content. Um, I don't know about you, but like when I search for something on Google, I'm like putting Reddit in my query like every single time. I have a golden doodle, so as my dog, so it's like best activities for golden doodles Reddit. Because
Oh,
we ultimately I think we want to hear from like real people, and when you if I just search for best things to do with my golden doodle, then I'm going to get a bunch of blogs that have like, stuff that is irrelevant, a lot of filler. And it's hard to sort of get to the bottom of it. And I think like searching for Reddit is almost like you're asking a friend for a recommendation or something like that. And then, these communities or these groups on Reddit are just so close to the topic. So you inherently kind of trust what they're talking about and things. The other interesting piece about Reddit is if you get into Reddit and you create a post or something within a community, if you're trying to like, you know, if it sounds like marketing or something like that, you're going to get roasted, you know? So it forces you to have like this authentic, value first kind of vibe that you bring to the table if you're going to get any traction there.
I agree. And I think in this workflow right now, for the sake of getting the research ideas, how this entire flow looks like, we've put it together. But imagine if we could get the comments section as well within the Reddit, and then we do this entire research. It's going to be absolutely like, filled with a lot of perspectives, and you have options to like, fish through those perspectives and say, these are standing top when it comes to the pain point. It's very, I think, like you said, founders can actually like look into it and easily get the pain points of their audience and stuff like that from Reddit without having to spend too much in terms of the market research and time there.
Yeah, it's also a great place to find like pre-validated ideas that resonate, or ideas for content, whatever, that resonate with an audience. And you can be pretty sure that if it works or resonates on Reddit, it's probably going to work elsewhere. Like, I've found really interesting things within, let's say, the innate in community in Reddit, and then shared it on X and things, and it's gone completely viral. And I know a lot of other creators leverage that approach as well. So yeah, excited to see what you have for us today.
Yeah, I'm just going to share, and I'm also excited to like share the workflow. I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yep.
Awesome. So just to give a little bit of brief over here, we have a couple of nodes. Node 1 is the native Reddit node. And if you see the common nodes over here is the code node. Code node is going to help us structure the data that we are getting out of each of the nodes before. And this node is a LLM chain node where we are using Grok over here to do one-step analysis. And we are also using OpenAI. So, generally, James, you've always been encouraging us to use multiple models of LLM so that we are able to like extract the best out of each of the steps. So we are using Grok over here for a reason. We are using OpenAI again here. And then the third one, when we wanted to look into hooks and angles, like we have all the artifacts with us and we want to get a very strong hook and angle and stuff like that, we've used Claude over here.
Cool.
And we have a sheet node and set node ideally to store the data and to direct the data in terms of if you don't want to code, you want to basically like structure simply, you can use the set node as well. So this is the overall picture of the workflow.
Okay. And when you run the entire workflow,
Mhm.
maybe just give us a quick snapshot of the final output, and then we can maybe work backwards a little.
Yeah. So this is the final output. If you see, this is the, here you will see Reddit post. Sorry for scrolling through quickly. So here is the Reddit post. So we will get the Reddit post, the title, the subreddit, and we will get the summary of these Reddit posts, like what is being addressed in this post and what is the theme behind this post and what are the points that are discussed in each of this post. And from there, we are trying to derive content theme. Like if we want to do, okay, these are the posts, how do we basically like build content themes around it? Now, based on those themes, we are coming up with some hooks and angles, we can use for the content ideas and content creation for the later purposes. So these are something that we will be doing in the research.
Perfect.
I'm going to go to the workflow. So I'm always a big fan of manual trigger, and it's totally like up to our choice to basically go for a chat trigger, and then the trigger happens when you chat. But this is like, this gives me more control. So I'm starting it with a manual trigger where you click so that the entire workflow runs. So I'm going to go to Reddit. So this is the Reddit native node, right? So I've kept the subreddit to be marketing automation, and I have a keyword saying that I want posts around marketing workflow. Now it'll take me some. So I've mentioned that I just need 10. You can go up to 100, 150, how much ever you want. And I've gone for hot instead of relevant so that I get posts that have multiple comments and stuff like that, that are basically being engaged a lot.
Makes sense.
So I have these, let me just think there's an issue with the, yeah, zooming. So these are the posts that I got. And if you see, there are like a lot of irrelevant, too much data that's there. And I'm going to like remove this and get the structured output out.
Just to double click into that real quick. So, um, what benefit do we get when we just extract what we need from a data source and feed it into the LLM? I just want to highlight like why that's such an important step.
I think when we only take a specific thing and then run it, like I've done something, a big blunder when I tried to do this first workflow before was that I just took the content that I got from Reddit and then I ran through LLM. Two things that I faced. One was it does take a lot of API calls, right? Like because it's too heavy for any model to run. Like if I'm going to give 100, it's going to be like very difficult for it to run. And secondly, when it takes so much data, the output that you get is not going to be perfect because it usually only takes in the first few things for it to basically consider for the entire analogy that it's going to do. So
Yeah.
we have to do something like if we want to take multiple posts, we can always, we'll have to send it by batches. That's the rule, like we hard and fast rule that we have to follow in any automation that we are going, because we need to make sure we cover all bases. And at the same time, it's not like loading the API or LLM chain for a long time. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think we see this as a common theme throughout multiple workflows that we're building, ranging from a beginner workflow like this to the complicated setups like using Claude MCP or whatever.
Yeah,
The LLM generates a lot of power when you arm it with data, but arming it with too much data uses up a lot of context, a lot of tokens, and it increases the surface area for hallucination and errors. So our job is to kind of create these tools or these filtering mechanisms that help us get the right data to generate the right output from the model.
exactly. And I think that can also be automated, right? Like, for example, I've used a code over here saying that he only pick up certain things. And in the same code, I can still further add. Let's say I have like 100 data that I've taken, right? Now, it is not necessary that whether it is Reddit or any search mechanism that we go for, we would probably get a lot of junk data. So we can also like add context saying that remove the junk data either in the code, or if you're like shying from using a code or something, I would really suggest split in batches, add another AI node and say that, hey, remove the data that is like junk, that is not relevant to this particular theme or something, so that
Yeah,
it gives out data that we would want to like take into consideration for research and analysis.
yeah. And also, just to highlight this again, you're not a software engineer or a developer, right? So
No.
when you need code like this, walk me through your process again for how you're generating that code.
Yep. So I think it's a very simple thing that I do. First time, what I do is usually what I used to do is that I just mention in ChatGPT that this is where I'm looking for code and things like that. Oftentimes, it never works out. But the best way is to basically take a screenshot of what we are looking at. If there is an error, along with the error, that I just take a screenshot and then say I'm trying to like structure this output and I want the output to be termed like this. So if you see, the return has to be title, self text, and subreddit, because that's the output that I want. So give me a code that I can actually add it to the code node. So it basically like gives me the code and I copy paste it. Sometimes the code can be, when you paste it one time, it'll actually work, and the second time it doesn't work. Most of the cases it happens. So basically, then I go back to ChatGPT and then say that it has to be dynamic, it has to be like consider all sorts of AI output from the previous node. So it gives me a better code and stable code.
Yeah, I think that we've been talking a lot about like two things that you need to know as a vibe marketer are what questions to ask and what good looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that goes across the spectrum, whether you're vibe coding or you're vibe marketing. So oftentimes we don't know like what code to put in or whatever. I'd say 99% of the time, and I do the same thing. My desktop is littered with screenshots of like errors and things like that. So I'm just going back and forth until I get something that works, and I'm testing until I work through the bugs. I think a lot of people expect a one shot output, it doesn't work the first time, and then they get frustrated. But that's just the wrong approach. Like, no one's one-shotting stuff, maybe like 1% of people or less, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. If you even see this, right, the code is super user friendly right now. If you I don't think I will be able to write a code, but I can understand what this code is doing because of a lot of to and fro code conversation, right? Like it has a lot of null data over here. If you see, like this data or this data will be not necessarily relevant, so it basically removes null. So skip entries with no title or self text, it removes nulls and things like that, so we get the right set of filtered data that we are looking at. So this tells that this part is basically to skip the entries with no title or self text, and this part is basically to remove nulls. So basically, it gives you an idea that what you're going to do with this code.
Perfect. All right, nice. So you have your code, you're removing null, you're, getting some structured data, and I think the next step you said is you're leveraging Grok.
Yeah. So I've just used a very, very simple, you know, uh, prompt over here. And usually, like you say, right, like just go to, even if you're looking for a prompt that you want to put it in an n8n, I just go back and ask ChatGPT that I want something like this, and the output has to look like this. So it gives me a very structured prompt. And the advantage in doing this is that, let's say if I'm going to use Grok, I go and use Grok to get the prompt. If I'm using GPT, I go to GPT to get the prompt. If I'm using Claude, I go to Claude to get the prompt. I've seen differences over here because Grok has a different algorithm in terms of returning an output, and it needs certain things in the front, and it has to be structured. The prompt has to be structured as per Grok, the same way Claude works that way, and also GPT. So I think going to your specific LLM models to get the prompt is a great way to tune the model like you want.
That's a really good insight. So, and we talk a lot about using different models at different stages or for different jobs. What do you find that Grok is particularly strong at doing?
A couple of things. One is that when you take Grok, right, the one of the things is the real time data it gives, and also the logical reasoning that it has when it comes to short type of content over a, like, text heavy content. Like when there is text heavy, I obviously go for O3 mini because it can take the load. Grok at the moment in the API level cannot take the load.
Mm.
So I basically go for a logical reasoning plus very relevant data output that I'm looking for. We choose Grok. But if it is text heavy and we need a very in-depth analysis, O3 Mini.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So, what are you doing here with Grok? What's your prompt, and what are you instructing the model to do?
So basically, I'm asking Grok to basically look into the self text, which is the Reddit post, and asking it to come up with a summary for each of the posts and what is the theme? What does the theme cover? Like summarize the Reddit post in one sentence as a summary. What is the main idea of this particular topic? And what are the pointers that it is entailing in the post, right? Like what is it addressing in each of the post. So I think these are very, very important, like breaking the post or any sort of text that you get, whether it's a blog or any smaller content for that matter. As much as you break that into multiple set of information, it becomes easy for us to like research and do analysis in better way.
Cool. Very helpful. All right. Cool. Makes sense. What happens? What happens next?
So we get the post summary. We also get so if you see here, it's like all the data is like not very structured again. So there's a theme, there's a post summary, and there is what else? Yeah, points from the Reddit post from this particular post. How is it broken down? So you'll get that. Now the next thing, since the output is like not really structured, it is JSON output and it has things like this. We're going to structure it using a code.
Yep.
You can
By
see.
the way, I saw your battery notification come up. You may want to plug in.
Yeah, I'm going
There
to
are a
do
lot
that.
of battery anxiety people out there. Sometimes when I make a post on X and I'm like in the red, people are like, "You better charge your phone." I'm like, "Thanks, I know that."
Yep. Yeah, it's all good.
Cool. Okay, so we're back to structuring the output again.
Yeah. So we get an output from Grok, the summary, theme, and what point it entails, each of the Reddit post. So it'll look like this: Reddit summary, theme, and points.
Yep. Okay, makes sense.
So the next thing is we are merging these two nodes, which is the cleared, like the clean text that we saw from the Reddit, as well as the posts from the summary, theme, and points from here. And we are again putting this into OpenAI model because this time we have like a lot of content for it to like go through. So what we are trying to do is a very simple prompt. We want to like look at content idea themes. Like I want to basically looking into all of this, like specifically the text and the summary. I want to basically like come up with content idea themes and what each of these idea themes should entail as
Mm.
pointers. So this will be helpful for me to further break that down into different content ideas and further take it down into angles and hooks and stuff like that. So this is the next step that we are doing.
Okay, and on this step, you're not using Grok, correct? You're using a
I'm
different
using
model.
OpenAI. Yeah, I'm using OpenAI over here,
Okay,
ChatGPT.
cool.
So here, if you see, we get something like, hey, these are the content themes that you can explore. Introduction to marketing automation based on this particular post and theme. What can you actually like get into it? Like you can define what marketing automation is. You can break down popular marketing automation platforms. What are the benefits of automation? So what things you can actually like consider when you take that as a cluster or the topic to basically explore.
Got it. Okay.
And we are using a set node here because to some extent I wanted to like come out of code and I wanted to like juggle between code and set node so that it is easier for someone who doesn't want to code to look into this. For example, I just want to get this theme like this.
Hmm.
So I'm going to use content theme, and this is again, I go to ChatGPT to get it. That I want to basically slice this particular content and I want to structure that content separately. So I get something like this.
Okay.
I'm going to merge this one and the Reddit posts and the summary of the posts and things like that together. I'm going
And
to
with merging, you're just bringing these different kind of structured outputs together into one place.
exactly, yeah. Otherwise, you would only get the output from the previous node.
Right.
And again, we can use multiple option. We don't use append, we use combine because let's say that if you see, it is basically for the Reddit post and you are getting the content ideas around that. So to get throughout, it's basically based out of the Reddit post. So you can combine it. Append is like when you have, let's say from node one, there's like different set of things that you are trying to get as an output, and node two, there's like different set of output. When you want to get both the output, that is where you use like append. We don't use combine over there.
Okay. Perfect.
Now I'm going to redirect all of that into an Excel, like Reddit post, title, summary, theme, subreddit, points from each Reddit post, and content theme,
Yep.
like you see
So
here.
now you're starting to get all this into one place, into a Google Sheet, so that you can really sort of look at, share, edit, start to paint the picture of how you can actually make this usable as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the other reason can also be that when we have these Google Sheets, like you can also use Google Sheet in different places here as well. You can store it. The advantages of using Google, another advantage of using Google Sheet is that, let's say, for example, you want to test from, let's say the workflow stops or there is an error, right? You don't have to go through the entire step from the beginning. This also I learned very late that I just simply like duplicate this, remove the trigger. I use the trigger and this to further run the next set of my workflow to see if it is working. Else, every time I do the test, I'll have to like, start from the beginning. It takes time and it also like takes a lot of token.
Yeah. Sounds kind of like a little bit of a version control type
Yeah.
thing. Maybe a coder would use that to isolate the variable that's causing an error instead of going back to the beginning or something like that.
Yeah. So basically, I tried to do that. I learned it very late, and I would really suggest someone to not go through this because it definitely costs a lot of time and API.
The best lessons are learned the hard way, I guess.
Yeah, very true. So we got all of that from Google Sheets. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically take the content theme and ask it to look into hooks and angles to explore those themes. Because I think for any sort of post, whether it's a blog, LinkedIn, or Twitter, the hook and angle is like very important. I think the angle actually differentiates the content that you are trying to build versus what you see outside.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think
Yeah.
this is an important part of the research as well.
Right. And just to help folks that may not be familiar with what is a hook or what is an angle or something like that. Like a hook is one of the most important pieces of your content because that's what's grabbing people's attention and sort of like bringing them in. When you watch a video on YouTube or whatever, or a short form piece of content, like they all start with a really strong hook in the first 2 or 3 seconds. It gives you a reason, why you're going to engage with that content. And the angle is kind of like your unique take on the topic, and what benefit you're giving the people from engaging or reading or watching or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So even if you see over here, right, like what could be interesting angles and hooks that you can explore when you say introduction to marketing automation, say stop downing in tasks, how marketing automation save businesses 20 hours per week. And it basically explores angles like the psychological relief of eliminating repetitive tasks,
Mm,
the paradox of automation, how mechanizing processes create more authentic customer connection. Like these are angles that are super important for us to build content. Like
yeah.
imagine if I have multiple angles and I can filter through those angles and say that, hey, this is the angle that I want. And you
Yeah.
can add a human in the loop so that before creating content, you select those angles and build ideas and content on top of it.
Yeah. And what's valuable about this too is that you have one topic or whatever, and it's difficult to think of all of these angles and all of these hooks and things like that.
Yeah,
Um, this helps to solve the cold start problem. It gives you a bunch of options to look at. It gives you a bunch of different things that you could potentially test out in the market to understand maybe a unique spin that customers, or I'm sorry, competitors are not utilizing. So
very
this is a way that you can find differentiators in your content, leveraging the power of AI to, think of a bunch of different angles that otherwise would be difficult for you to do manually.
exactly. And I think the hooks, another thing that I would like to add is that the information that we get, like if you see over here, there's something like um, while you sleep, how automated keyword tracking uncovered a $50K opportunity for brand X. I think we need to clearly understand that these are like filler or exaggerated data points.
Sure.
So these are some ideas, right? Like these are some ideas that we can take inspiration from and not blindly take that content and then do it. When we
Right.
build content and when we are going to write prompt for that, we should be extremely clear, set up guardrails and say, don't take this content just like that. There are some hallucination. You define all of that. Avoid this if it is not provided. If there is no data that you have with the input that is provided, do not take that data is something that we need to instruct the LLM model so that it doesn't hallucinate when it is creating content.
Yep. Makes sense.
So yeah, so I think then we are again like using a set note to get that into only the hooks into a different place. We are merging that and yep, taking it to the sheet where you can see the hooks and angles for all of it.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, again, what's cool about this is that you're going to one subreddit, one topic, and you're able to like totally expand on that one thing to create, tons of content ideas with multiple hooks and angles and stuff. So, somebody might be like, okay, this is great getting all this from Reddit, but what's the use case? Well, let's say you need ideas for ads. One of the ways that you succeed in advertising is by testing a lot of different ads. And while everyone else is scraping their competitors' ad library and recycling hooks and angles that everyone else is using, the person that's going out there and understanding like the conversations that are trending in communities is going to have a bunch of fresh ideas that others have not already taken advantage of. So that's one. So I think that looking at channels like this really give you an opportunity to create content that stands out from the crowd.
Yep. And the angles are really, really good. When you fish through it, and I'm excited to basically like build on top of it, where taking a specific angle, come up with multiple content ideas for different channels and build content on top of it. Like, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way that angles are useful would be to highlight, let's say, in your website copy or something like that. There might be a hidden angle that really makes a potential customer, kind of light up, and that might be the thing that pushes them over the edge to convert on your product or your service or something like that. So I think if you're in a competitive market or a crowded market or something like that, or your copy and your content might feel like me too, this is the type of research that you should be doing. And this is the use case and the benefit of doing something like this. Again, if you were to try to do this manually, it would take you just can't do this manually.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one more thing that I would like to add, James, since it is Reddit, right? Like when you mentioned about website angle and things like that, imagine the pain point you can capture of the target audience around the subreddit where people are talking about that, you understand what is ideally like missing in the market, potentially missing in the market, what people are facing. Like multiple people talk about, I've used gum loop, I've used innate, and I've used this, I've used that. And when you see, you would see underlying pain point when they discuss saying that, hey, I tried to use innate, but it did not really work for me because of the learning curve, right?
Yeah.
And when you are building a product or something or a service around it, you can basically capture the pain point from there. And like you said, for the website that you write a copy, this will be like like literally like a golden goose for you to basically like pick that and just drop it into your website so that it converts.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm also excited to see how with future iterations we can leverage comments.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way to, look at sentiments and extract more information to dial in on the customer language or the pain points or, something along those lines.
I'm excited. I think the next thing that I'm going to work on is look into the comments and see what we can extract from there and how we can use it, like multiple use cases. Even like, we can ask AI to basically, how would you map these pain points for different content assets and where can be used, and see what it is actually like giving us as suggestions.
Yeah. And I've been asked a lot, like, how do I grow on Reddit? Like, and it's hard. Like, people don't really know how to interact with or engage in a Reddit community unless they're like already a Reddit power user. So when you're coming from the outside as like a marketer or something like that to the platform, it can feel, very intimidating. Like, ooh, I don't want to get roasted on here. I'm scared to say anything. So I think that another valuable use case would be just giving people a bit of a co-pilot in terms to guide them on how they should interact with a certain community on Reddit. Like, how are commenters talking? What's the tone? How are they resonating? Are they asking questions? Are they adding a lot of value? What topics uh, are things to avoid, and what are topics and discussion points within threads to go deeper into?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great angle to look at.
Cool. Well, this is really helpful. Great deep dive into what we would consider kind of like a starter workflow with also a lot of other nuggets around how you can utilize this information and take it to the next level. So thanks for showing this to us.
Thanks, James. Thanks for sharing some interesting ideas. I think I'm going to definitely implement in the next workflows.
Awesome. Sounds good, Varu. Until next time, we'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.